Hello everyone. Now welcome back to the IDRiM podcast. Now we have very special episodes where I'm now sitting with my guests, which is my beloved professors, that is the supervisors, my supervisors for all my postgraduate studies, from master to PhD, and even now I'm also working under him. And today we will talk about his life in research when he already started research from the early 90s until now, almost more than 30 years he's been in this disaster risk reduction field. This person is none other than Professor Hirokazu Tatano of Disaster Prevention Research Institute of Kyoto University. And now we will exploring about how his life in this research has been shaping his almost entire life. And he will share with us all the challenges, achievements, and experiences that maybe can be beneficial for all of us. Now, first of all, Tatano Sensei, can you introduce yourself maybe and tell us a bit about your current positions in here?
Okay, thank you very much, Harris, for the kind introduction. I'm Hirokazu Tatano. They are born in Japan and they grow in Japan, actually. And then I have been graduated from Kyoto University of civil engineering. And in the civil engineering, there is a kind of the group what is called the infrastructure planning and management. I'm actually when I was a bachelor student, I belonged to the planning systems analysis. That's the lab name of our laboratory. The professor of that laboratory was Kazuhiro Yoshikawa. And then that time I have started for kind of the flood protection planning, and that for the bachelor and master thesis. And then actually I'm very much interested in the kind of the planning processes, especially for the disaster risk reduction that time. After that, actually my hometown is in Shimane Prefecture in the rural side of Japan seaside. And then small, prefecture, one of the most smallest prefecture. So my father and mother and the other relatives live in that area. So I'm expected to, keep our, not many properties, but anyway, keep our, family that prefecture. I decided to join kind of as an engineer for the prefecture government. And then, but sometime 1 year later, after joining that office, and I got a phone call from Professor Yoshikawa. He is a supervisor of myself, and then he said that someone had his former graduate is now working in Tōhoku University. Want to hire you as a research associate. So the name of the person is Nori Okada, actually. Then he I just simply use my car to drive to that place for around 6 hours for the ride. But anyway, I go there and then talk to him. And definitely, he said that he is now find a person who can work with him as a research associate. Then I found, of course, I know him for a long period when I was a student. Actually, I read his papers and achievement from the student age. So I'm really had some interest because of my most respected professor called me as a kind to work with me. So I decided to join him. But that time I don't have any PhD degree, so I should let's say plan for kind of the to get a PhD. Otherwise, I cannot continue job in academic area. So that is the reason why I started kind of the initial story for when I start for the career in the field of the let's say disaster risk reduction that period. Yes, I spent there for around 9 years. The first 4 years as a research associate, and after the 5 years, I as an associate professor. After take a PhD, and then after that I moved to Kyoto University. After joining the Kyoto University, unfortunately Norio left to Kyoto University. Then I was still there. Then I should have complete PhD dissertation while I was in 2 years, in 1 year actually. Then finally I got a PhD and then promoted an associate professor that time. Yeah. Then during that period, after get the PhD, Hanshin Awaji earthquake took place. And then simultaneously, I decided to go to IASA. And then while I'm in IASA, I got another phone call from Norio. And then Norio said that actually he need to have an associate professor in his laboratory. In DPRI, the big reform is going on. He will move to another, let's say, laboratory. So he said that, then, okay, then I decided to go to, let's say, DPRI. Then I joined DPRI in 1997. Yeah. Then after that, I'm working with Norio up to 2002, I think. He formed, another reform has been made in DPRI. He moved to DRS, that is a Disaster Reduction System Center, Research Center. Then I was in the kind of integrated disaster risk management section that time. So we are separated. Then after he moved to that, I would say, center, I have been promoted as a full professor. Then that is, I would say, another story from 2003. Yes. Is that enough?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, and what I noticed is that listening to Anna Maria's speech earlier this month and then listening to yours, there seems to be a theme developing at DPRI of it's Norio kind of guides people's careers and brings them in almost literally out of the blue. And it's actually fascinating to actually hear people's stories on this. What I wanted to do is actually take you more into about what inspired your career, inspired you to pursue a career in the field of disaster risk reduction. So I talked with Funda in the podcast released at the beginning of this month. And when we drew on Funda's experience of what drew her into this field, it was based upon her experience of the Izmir earthquake in 1999, where she was personally affected. And during that talk also, I talked about my personal experience of as a 11, 12-year-old kid watching Hurricane Katrina and all the impact and thinking, why does this sort of thing happen? And we would come to the conclusion that maybe it's something in our childhood that draws us to some sort of either trauma or curiosity draws us to this topic. And I don't know about yourself, what may have inspired you in this career?
Maybe a bit different, actually. Yeah. Of course, during my career in Tōhoku University, the 1995 Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake, Kobe earthquake take place. Right, it's the first devastating, let's say, earthquake in the urban area in Japan. The very, very big impact for the, let's say, disaster studies. But unfortunately, that time I was in Tottori, a little far from here, and I don't have a very enough chance to, let's say, work for that, let's say, earthquake and recoveries. Then I already decided and or also make a contract for the let's say, to work at the IASA. So I didn't have any chance that time to work for the disaster areas. When I was at IASA, basically more optimization decision under uncertainties, but later that is also another story. Actually, during my stay in the IASA, the original project resolved. And then I should be joined another, let's say, a group which is led by Yuri Emoriev and Joan Bayer. So that time, then I also work with them. Then anyway, they during that period, IASA also do not have very strong interest on the disaster itself. But actually, they have also start a kind of discussion related to the disaster risk reduction level. So we have been kind of the sense know some people from IASA, and then I returned to Japan, joined DPRI. After joining DPRI, I found that actually the very few people had a kind of the, let's say, understanding or kind of the theories related to explanation of the what is best policies or what is kind of rationale to, let's say, decide policies or the microeconomics, macroeconomics, this kind of economic aspect evaluation questions is not really so much, let's say, scientifically discussed. Then I feel that I should do that area. Otherwise, just simply policy is a kind of like they don't have any distinction before, like policy and politics. That's very, very different. So that is, I thought that is my role. So this time I decided to spend at least 2-3 years to create my understanding, especially what is the feature of the disasters, why the government intervention needed, and then what would be the, let's say, evaluation criteria, at least from the viewpoint of the economics for the policy making. So that is my starting point. Then after that, gradually changing a little areas or expanding the areas of the research. That's my, let's say, original intention to work for that. Yeah, thank you.
So, based on this story, Sensei, let me go to the another questions that, as you mentioned, that you need to be someone who filled the roles as explaining the policy and evaluations of economic impact of disaster. Then, of course, being in these roles, you actually engage with many policymakers and government and industry. And how do you engage with all these people, different sectors, and when you advocate what you have found in your research?
Yeah, of course. It is not very easy for us to have such a kind of, let's say, group who can support our ideas or implement it into the real world, right? Definitely not very easy. But fortunately, as I said, that infrastructure planning and management is a kind of the area which is within the civil engineering, they said. But actually, the policy kind of government workers and consultant private companies also join that area. And then basically, they are more closer to the kind of the rationale or kind of the economic related to the, let's say, normative studies of the for the to discuss what would be the best ways. When I joined, after return, joining in the Tōhoku University and the first period in the DPRI, early, let's say late 90s. Actually, before that period, just basically like a kind of the many, even that areas, basically they uses data and also integrated models or integrated evaluations. That's it. Maybe let's say like a pie chart, right? So it is this policy is this good, this that is not so good. Something such a kind of maybe very subjective evaluation. And then economics introduced that area. And then we have been developed theoretical studies. And then Pareto efficiency can be achieved or not, that kind of thing. This policy is, let's say, in what context that is, let's say, optimal or validated, something, such a kind of discussion based on theoretical studies, given some, let's say, set of the conditions, right? Yes. Then the that is that period. So I'm very much, let's say, interested in the kind of the what kind of externalities or what kind of, let's say, conditions which can, let's say, allow us to have a government intervention for the disaster risk reduction. So after that, we have been developed our own view for that problem. Then it is relatively easier for us to, let's say, talk to the others. Then they are given that. So some of the people knows what I'm doing. And also, I have also the fortunate to have to attend kind of the, let's say, meetings, like a project meeting at the Horton School of the, at the Pennsylvania University. The Howard Kunlusha and Paul Kleindorfer, they are the kind of head of that group. But the Japanese insurance companies and other, let's say, rating organizations also joining that, let's say, project. And I have requested to join because to make some report for them. So anyway, I have that's a chance, right? And then doing such a kind of chances in the world, and also the EASA relations and the EASA DPRI forum we have been started 2001. And then given such a kind of international relations, and of course because of the such a kind of research area, I have been asked to evaluate kind of the, let's say, public works, let's say, efficiency, especially for the river works or the highways. Then I have been spending. Then they have make a kind of the, let's say, possible chances, give me chances as a kind of the little advice for them. Hopefully, one of the most significant for my, let's say, experience, I guess, is the kind of the work with Shiga Prefecture. Actually, it started very small scale, but anyway, the later governor changed it, and I see actually lady governor, right? We are very much, let's say, want to promote a kind of the non-structural flood risk reduction. Then I've been kind of the advisor for that, let's say, group, and then spend more than I forget very long period right now already, more than 20 years with them. And then that forms a kind of the entire structure, non-structure flood risk reduction. I think this is the most let's say, advanced river management, let's say, systems in Japan, at least up to right now. But now central government uses the same word for the let's say, disaster risk, flood risk reduction. And they expand. Of course, they have more kind of the power to legislate, right? New things. So they can, let's say, expand that kind of scope. But anyway, I'm very, some sense, proud of such a kind of activity working with Shiga Prefecture. Thank you. I'm sorry to speak too long.
No worries. It's fine. Actually, I was just thinking, when you returned back from IASA back in the late 90s, so UK perspective is that when we look at Japan in particular with disasters, that you're very well versed with disaster, risk reduction, how to manage disasters and recovering from it. And now 97 was post Kobe, and what I was just wondering was actually how well them systems really were developed, because whilst in the West we have this illusion that you can just shake it off, manage it really, really well, what I'm getting a little bit of a sense is that actually post Kobe that them structures weren't fully developed yet, and that it wasn't really until what we saw in 2011 that maybe that set us off that we think, oh, you can recover from these really easy and quite quickly. So I'm just wondering, from your experience, around 97, 98, actually, were you that well versed on trying to stop disasters?
Tough question. Of course, each disaster, we found new things and new problems. Even 2023, Anoto Peninsula earthquake, we are now writing a kind of the policy recommendation. Yeah, of course, let's say if we summarize that, 1995, right? A Kobe earthquake is a kind of the alarm clock wake us up. Before that period, of course, we have introduced building codes and the design standard for the highways or these kind of structures, right? So the kind of the design related to standards already established, but only that, unfortunately. We don't have any good, let's say, very good response system. Of course, we have firefighters there, but not very well organized ones to deal with big recovery problem, response problems. So it's the some sense mess, that period. But we have learned we should create such a kind of response system. And then, of course, learning the cases from US and Europe and other countries, of course, but in the Japanese context, each ministry should have the roles for the recovery also. So some coordination will be the best way. That is decided by the central government, and also local government had a very strong, important role. So that's such a kind of disaster response system, and the disaster preparation planning and for the entire region. Such things is basically newly introduced after the Kobe earthquake. But definitely, the Eastern Japan earthquake actually give us another call. But maybe what is maybe most striking is we know that we have a big, a high probability of occurrence of the earthquake in close to the Sendai in magnitude 7.6. That may take place in probability of 90% in 30 years, something like that. Very, very high frequency is expected. But we thought that may happen only in that scale. Of course, the scale itself cannot be predetermined also. After 2011, we think that way. But before that period, actually, such a kind of the size of the faults and what fault will move. So the base, we are very ignorant actually to follow the statement of the earthquake scientists. They say that this is the evidence. You can see that, right? But definitely that is our observation period is very much limited. So if we look at the more longer period of observation, maybe we may include such a devastating magnitude 9.0 earthquake may take place there. Of course, other places like Nankai Trough, Nankai, such kind of the areas, of course, we also consider such a kind of possibility. But yeah, before not 2011, we don't expect such a big earthquake take place in the northeastern Japan. So that is very, very, devastating. And also that is definitely brings about a big tsunami and then causes a nuclear, power plant accident. And that causes definitely a higher, very, very big, impact, especially for the radiations. Right? That is definitely out of our scope. So again, the preparation question is again the problem, right? And then, yeah, even small disasters. Now Japan is facing with decreasing population, right? So that period actually, the coping capacity of the government, especially local government, is getting lower, and then not very easy to find the kind of the appropriate or timely, support for the recovery. That is also the very, very difficult situation. Maybe we need to reform a kind of the recovery support systems for the future. Yeah, that's what we are talking about now. Thank you.
So thinking a bit from your explanation right now, especially about the Great East Japan earthquake, you are one of the key person doing the economic impact assessment on that and recovery from that. And how did you come into that positions? Did you get it's funded? It's based on your call, or someone asked you to do that? And how this experience doing this research on the very large disaster shape your career afterwards?
Really? Yeah. That actually in Japan, there are many types of the calls for the research after the event, right? But one of the major one is called the Toppat Saigai, like emergency surveys for the large scale disaster. So that is that call is basically that kind of survey is basically supported by the Ministry of Education and
MEX,
right, MEX. So then DPRI basically is one of the major research institutes. So we get the information relatively quicker, and then I just may send my interest on economic impact studies for that. Then they can, of course, not many people working in that area, so relatively easier for us to get the kind of to be included in the research team. So that is the reason why I get such a kind of the position or kind of roles for that surveys. Of course, other the programs like Japan Society of Natural Disaster Science also provides some monies, or the other like JST or JSPS also provide some research grant for the quick assessment for the big earthquakes or floods, right? So that is of course possible. But what is good is it makes to us a team is including from the earthquake sciences, or from the such a science and the engineers and the social scientists and the kind of the engineering economists like me also are included. So it would be a very nice to know grasp the kind of what happened after that. So that is I try to apply as much as possible. I can the resources to contribute for that kind of grant. But actually, the grant is still very small, just to give us a kind of a chance to go for a field, right? So to conduct a questionnaire survey, definitely we should find other sources to conduct research. And so, but that name gives us some chance to apply for the other grants. Yes, that's it.
Actually, just thinking about 2011, we've talked quite a lot about it. But post disaster in 2011, did you think and/or feel there was an increased pressure inside the scientific community in Japan and the economist community to actually understand what were the issues, especially given the increasing threat that the Nankan Trough is posing, especially to cities like Tokyo in the next 30 years?
That's a good question. I'm not really the earthquake scientist, so I cannot say that very as an expert. But after 2011, definitely, ordinary citizens realize that really such a big one may take place, right? So that also provides a kind of sense for very big losses is expected for the near field earthquake in Tokyo or near Nankai Trough earthquake we call that is also the magnitude 9.0. That is raised from the older estimation. But why this? Because we should prepare for the citizens and also government also feel that we should prepare for the big one. Then we can, let's say, deal with smaller one. That is their idea. That's fine. So such a kind of the momentum is provided provided by the event of 2011, I think. Yeah. But I think also this is another counter, let's say, effect for us actually. Of course, only such a big one is take place, right? Of course, smaller, even in the same name, smaller one can take place, and also maybe not very significant impact. But still, if we prepare for the big one always, maybe too much, the cost can be spent for that, right? And also we may too much afraid from the hazard. So that is not a very good thing, right? So of course ignorant is not good, but too much afraid, that is also not good. So we should know also. Now we should know more variety of scenarios and then decide more rationally. And then also another possible, right? First level, we should do the second level, and then what is if there is a maximum observed, then we should go that way, or such kind of different way of evacuations, such things we should prepare. Otherwise, not really good, I guess. So that is talent, right? The preparation is going on in Japan based on such a kind of experience. Thank you.
Wow. What a great episode, and we hope you enjoyed our conversation with Professor Hirokazu Tatano. This is only part one of our conversation. So when we interviewed Professor Tatano back last month, the conversation went on for over 1 hour. And this is just the first part, and we will be, in the next episode of the IDRiM podcast, be releasing the second part of our conversation with Professor Tatano. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Bye.